Hey everyone, how's it going? Happy Friday, and glad to be back again with you, giving you another Facebook Live. Today is the last of our videos on my approach to ancestral health and some of the things that I work on with my clients. And I've kind of saved the most fun topic for last, and that is the principle of avoiding doing stupid things. Um, I think when we look at our ancestors and the key to their survival, they did a lot of things, but the number one thing they avoided doing was anything that was going to cause them harm or put them in a situation that decreased their chance for survival. So they didn't do things like, probably jump off, 50-foot rock ledges into some body of water. They weren't actually driving around in uh, giant metal cages going extremely fast, which we do today and is actually, I guess somewhat safe. But they didn't take unnecessary risks, things that would cause them severe injury, things that might put them in harm's way, things that would decrease their chance for finding food or water, things that would put them in, maybe a climate situation that would, drastically affect their chance of survival. I'm sure they wouldn't go out in extreme cold without, um, the proper protection. They wouldn't go spend a lot of time out in extreme heat if they didn't have to. But all too often today, we find ourselves putting ourselves into situations that are less than desirable and often result in us, um, you know, suffering some kind of injury or just taking a setback along our health journey. And a lot of that has to do with one, for the fact that we have and are completely grateful for the amazing technologies and innovations that have happened since the time of our ancestors in modern medicine. If we break a bone, we could just go to the hospital and get it fixed, and a few weeks later we were in a cast, and we don't have to really worry about it. But if you broke your bone, uh, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and you couldn't move, your chance of survival was pretty slim. Um, because you couldn't get food, you couldn't get water, and chances are it wouldn't set right, and you'd have some kind of debilitating movement pattern for the rest of your life. And so when you find animals out in the wild that have suffered injuries like that, their chance of survival actually goes down pretty quickly. You also can't escape predators or anything like that, and God forbid if you hurt yourself and got an infection, there was no medicine that you could take to fight off that infection, right? So we are able to take a lot more risks today than we were, hundreds of thousands of years ago, because we have these great innovations around us. And so that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? We're often, put ourselves in situations that we know maybe wouldn't put ourselves in if we knew that we couldn't run off to the hospital or there wasn't medicine for us to take that is going to heal us if something did go wrong. But there are still situations like, for example, doing exercising, right? Where we oftentimes put ourselves in bad situations and get ourselves injured. If you've never, your squat PR is 100 pounds and you decide to throw 300 pounds in the bar and see if you can squat it because the guy next to you is doing that. That's probably a very dumb thing to do, but yet people do that all too often. And that might be an extreme example, but it can just be pushing yourself just slightly over the edge further than you're comfortable with, you're comfortable with, just because, of some challenge or someone, some expectations they put on you, whatever it might be. And, if you do something like that and then you injure yourself, well, guess what? You're now taking time away from your gym and taking time away from your fitness goal. And that's a pretty silly thing to do. You should, whatever you're doing, realize your limitations and It's okay to push a little bit beyond those limitations sometimes, but pushing beyond them to the point where it's an unsafe um, practice is a bad thing, right? Because you're going to injure yourself, and you're going to then take a few steps back, and hopefully you learn something from that. But that few steps back a lot of times often derails people, and they not only take a few steps back for just to heal the injury, but they just never get back to the gym for months or years or ever, and that's not what we want at all. And the same thing goes for things like eating and the food that we eat, right? If you know that you have a hard time resisting certain foods, but you constantly put yourself in a situation where these foods are around unnecessarily, then you're really hurting yourself. You're making a stupid mistake. If you can avoid the situation, or avoid the food, or avoid the triggers that work against you in your goals, then you should do that, right? You shouldn't purposely put yourself in these situations, even though you know that these things are going to go wrong, right? Things like it could be small things like ignoring the fact that having a few glasses of wine before bed every night drastically affects your sleep, but yet you still constantly drink the wine every day before you go to bed. Or that caffeine beyond noon really affects your sleep, but yet you still constantly go out and get that coffee after noon that is going to affect your sleep, right? And we know these things, yet sometimes we still do them. So avoiding them is really just a principle that you should keep in mind, right? When you go to do something, you should ask yourself, is this really just a dumb mistake that asking to injure myself or put myself in a situation where my eating is getting compromised, or I'm just constantly doing the same thing over and over again, even though I know that it's not good for me, right? So these things are to be avoided, right? So then this is different from making a mistake, right? If you mistakenly, are on your run and you twist your ankle and you injure yourself, well, that's a mistake. It's an accident. It's not something that you can avoid. Or you try some type of food and it disrupts your digestion, and you're kind of thrown off for a week because you accidentally ate something that didn't agree with you, right? Those are learning situations where you learn something about yourself, and then you're actually making, well, it might set you back in the short term. You're actually making progress in the long term, because now you know that, this food doesn't really jive well with me, or I need to slow down and take a little bit more patience when I'm running on a trail, not to avoid, pay attention to my foot placement so that I don't trip and hurt myself and twist my ankle again, and that type of thing, right? But if you're, for example, knowing that you have overuse injuries and you're constantly pushing the limits, and you're constantly going to the limits of your exercise and asking for trouble, then that's a stupid mistake, right? That's something that you've done a few times before, and you have this tendency for overuse injuries, and you have a tendency for pushing yourself too far. You should avoid doing that, right? That's an avoidable thing. You've already learned the lesson, you're just not applying it. So that's the last principle of my approach to ancestral health, is really just avoid doing stupid things. Use your brain a little bit. Don't make mistakes. We often get away with them today, but hundreds of thousands of years ago, we did not get away with them. And that will just help you get to your goals a lot quicker and keep you on the path to your goal without really taking unnecessary setbacks along the way. So that's it. That's the last one for today, and that's the last one for our series. So next week we'll talk about something different, which I'm sure you're probably all happy about. If you want to sign up for my newsletter with tons of great content and stuff that goes out every week, feel free to do that. You can find that at rjbhealth.coach. Right at the top in the menu, there's a newsletter button. Click that, and you can enter your email address and sign up. And you get free content, just useful content, actionable stuff that you can take away every week. And if you have any questions or comments about this video or any of the other ones I've done, feel free to drop a comment on next to the video, or message me, direct message me on Facebook or Instagram, send me an email, whatever you want. Happy to talk, happy to chat, happy to debate any of the things that I laid out here as an ancestral approach to health. And I hope you find it useful. I hope it provides you a little bit better idea how I work with people and my beliefs and mindset around designing a healthy lifestyle around ancestral health. So with that, I'll talk to everyone next week, and hope you all have a great weekend.